Most of us Pikmin fans know that Louis is just a devious psychopath who's caused more issues in Pikmin than one can count on their hand. But we also know him as the man that has a bottomless pit when it comes to snacking on PNF 404's creatures. As a kid playing Pikmin 2, I always got a kick out of reading Louis' notes because I like food. Maybe not as much as he does, but still it made me quite hungry. So now that I'm an adult looking for better culinary options in this saturated food market, I've turned to the devious Hokotashin that has made potential culinary delights out of some of my home plants roaming creatures, wondering if they're as good as they look. And now I'm on a mission to see which of Louis' recipes are actually as tasty as he says they are. Today we're starting with the basics, the dwarf red Bulborb. This is the most common and notorious enemy in Pikmin, and it's only appropriate that I start out with Louis' recipe for the scrub dog mimic. And after doing research, I've determined that the Bulborb family is probably closest to beef in terms of taste. Since this is a mimic of a Bulborb, the meat we'll be using is actual ground beef. I've got a different idea for the meat that we'll use for the actual grub dog family members in the future. For now, considering that Louis mentions that breadbug meat is for the most part tasteless, it is the perfect palate for us to begin with. So now that we know our course of action, let's start by taking a look at Louis' recipe card. For a blissful bisque, mince the entire beast finely and stir in with heavy cream, artichoke hearts, and a pinch of black pepper. Heat slowly until piping hot, rich and creamy. Alright, so first let me explain what a bisque is if you're not familiar with it. Bisque is a rich, creamy soup that is typically made with shellfish, and while you would potentially argue that breadbugs are similar in taste to crab, that simply can't be true as shellfish have sweet-tasting meat, and as stated before, breadbugs are known to be bland in flavor. This breadbug is of course a mimic of a Bulborb, which makes me believe that it's adapted to the Bulborb's eating patterns and has definitely taken on a different flavor of meats, which, while still bland, is more than its cousin, the vanilla breadbug. So that being said, we're going to have to make sure we bring some flavor to this dish to make sure that the blandness of the dwarf Bulborb is not overpowering in any way. Now, I'm no Babish here, and in fact I consider myself more of an amateur cook if anything, but I do know my way around making some tasty dishes. So I'm going to be putting a little bit of a spin on Louis' dish to make it palatable for human consumption rather than Hokotashin consumption, but still making good enough to pass as something I could see Louis eating or even cooking himself. Alright, so with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at what we'll be needing for this recipe. To start out, we're going to need at least a pound of minced dwarf Bulborb meat from Louis Farms. Of course, that's the main part of the dish, so yeah, we're going to need it. You're also going to want to have 3 cloves of flourlick on hand. I'm going to be mincing these later. Now I'm going to be adding some cheese into the recipe. Louis doesn't call for this in his recipe, but I feel like this is going to add to the actual flavor of the dish. It's definitely going to be needed. I'm also going to be adding green onion and mushrooms because I feel like these are things Louis would find scattered around on PNF 404, and with all the ingredients he has listed already, it's going to be quite flavorless and bland. Of course, you need your artichoke hearts, heavy whipping cream, and I'm going to be using some Himalayan salt as well. So, with your prep work now complete, it's time to begin the dwarf Bulborb bisque. I'm going to be starting out by mincing our flourlick. And you're going to want to do this because if you just throw the cloves in, they're going to get too crunchy, too crispy. And we're going to also be setting our oven to high. You're going to want to do this now so that the pan starts to heat up and you can just get started immediately. Now, we're going to go ahead and take our dwarf Bulborb meat and we're going to add it to a bowl. You're going to be seasoning it with some garlic and onion powder, not too much, some red pepper flakes, and a pinch of salt. You're doing this because dwarf Bulborb meat is a breadbug meat and breadbug by flavor is usually tasteless, so we're going to be adding this in here, making sure it's nice and flavorful. You're going to want to incorporate everything nicely, and as soon as you see that it's incorporated nicely, you can go ahead and get started with the main dish. You're going to want to throw some Bulborb fat into a pot and let it sizzle. Then you're going to want to go ahead and start to add in your ingredients. We're going to go ahead and first add in our dwarf Bulborb meat. You're going to also want to let this sizzle for a little bit, and additionally you're going to want to throw in your cloves of flourlick at this point as well. You're going to be starting the dish out nice and strong with the proteins and the very flavorful flourlick, and you're going to let them cook for about 2 minutes, and then you're going to go ahead and add in our wild mushrooms. You're going to want to mix these all together for a couple of minutes and stir them frequently to make sure the meat is brown and the mushrooms begin to sweat. You'll see that it starts to make a lot of grease, and that's what we want. You're also going to want to add 1 cup of beef stock, but don't add too much because it's just for a little bit of extra flavor, but this dish already is going to be quite flavorful. We're going to go ahead and start making a roux here. Now, I personally hate making roux because you can easily mess this up if not done correctly, but you're going to want to add equal parts of Bulborb fat and flour together and get your roux started here on medium heat. You'll see that it begins to clump up like thus and so, and this is exactly what you want to happen to get your roux started here. So as I'm beginning to stir it in, we're going to slowly start to add in our next ingredient to this roux, which is milk. You're going to add about maybe a half or a whole cup, it depends on how much roux you're going to need here. I'm going to be adding a whole cup in of milk. You're going to mix them together, and then you're going to slowly do this. You don't want to do it too fast, or else you risk potentially making a bad roux. And you're also going to want to whisk it as well. Now, I don't do it right away because I mostly want to start mixing my milk in slowly, and I'm whisking in my roux here. I'm making sure all the flour clumps are broken up, and the consistency will begin to become a lot more creamy and soupy. As you can see by my thumbs up of approval here, that's the consistency we want. You're going to slowly start pouring your roux in here. As you can see, I don't do it super slow, but that's okay, and this is where the recipe starts to take shape. So now that it's all in and incorporated, you want to mix it together and make it more creamy. You want to do this for about 3 minutes here before adding your heavy cream. This is going to get a base started for your bisque, and you'll know it's ready when the sauce begins to stick to the pan, and you can see it start to slowly trickle down back into itself. Like you can see here, it is starting to get nice and incorporated. And now at this point, it is time to begin adding in our next ingredients, the heavy whipping cream and the artichoke hearts. So now is the time where I'm going to be starting to add in the heavy whipping cream. You're going to want to do at least 2 cups of heavy whipping cream. I'm doing 2 here, and you can add a little more if you want. But you're going to want to add your heavy whipping cream in first. You're going to let it be sitting there for a little bit, and then you want to add your artichoke hearts in. The reason we're adding it in so late is because you don't want to start cooking it with your bulborb and your mushrooms, because you risk burning the artichokes, and personally I hate very crunchy artichokes. So that's why we're adding them in later here, so they have time to get tender and absorb the flavors before it's too late. And they're also going to start breaking apart when you mix them up because they are quartered artichoke hearts. Now you may need to add a little bit more cream. I thought the consistency wasn't as creamy, so I added about maybe a quarter a cup of heavy cream in with a little bit of salt to add some flavor. Now it's time now to add in our cheese. We're going to take the pot off of the burner, and we're going to go ahead and add the cheese in and slowly stir it in for about 2 to 3 more minutes, or until the cheese is melted. I do it here until the cheese melts because it's already been cooking for quite a while, so we don't need to do this for an astronomically long amount of time. At this point, everything is all set and flavorful, and our bisque should be nearing completion here. You're going to want to make sure that it is off the burner at this point, like I said, and when you lift it out of the pot, you should see that it's nice and runny. Not dripping, but runny. And like I said with the pot, you'll notice that it sticks to it and then it starts to go back into itself. That is how you know you have the right consistency for a Bulborb bisque. So I'm going to go ahead and plate it here. I poured some of it into a bowl, garnished it with some green onion and black pepper as per Louis' recipe, poured myself a nice big glass of zest bomb juice, and then prepared to try Chef Louis' culinary delight. And guys, I gotta say, he was definitely onto something here. It reminds me a lot of stroganoff, but it has more of an earthy taste to it thanks to our mushrooms and flourlic, and the artichokes are very tender and have fallen apart. It's very delicious. Adding the green onion garnish also contributes to the earthiness that I feel this dish needs to have because, well, it's a wild bread bug mimic soup, and this is definitely a member of the Clean Pick Bowl Club, and it's so good I'm gonna have to ration out seconds whether Chef Lou likes it or not. Alright, so now that we've answered the question, yes, Chef Louis' Bulborb bisque is indeed consumable and actually quite tasty. I give it a total score of 8 Pikmin out of 10. I'd like to keep the trend going and make more of Louis' culinary delights, and I'd like to know what you want to see next. And no, before you ask, I won't eat the water wraith unless I hit 10k subscribers before the end of the year. I know that that's some sort of shameless plug, I get it, but I know it'll be almost impossible to hit, so it's just a failsafe to prevent me from suffering from the same pain that Louis did. I have an idea for my next dish in mind, but if you have a specific creature you want to see, be sure to let me know, and like the comments of the creatures you want to see cooked the most. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it to help it get around, and subscribe to my channel for more Pikmin content, as I would love to bring more of my love for this game to audiences around the globe. That's all for this video, thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Pikkai, and I'll see you later.